Hi everyone, I'm here with Niri Patel. He's the co-owner of Fit20 in the UK. Hi Niri, how you doing?
Great. Thank you, Doug, for having me on your podcast.
No, it's a pleasure. I'm keen to find out more about Fit20 because it seems a really interesting concept and not one that I've actually seen before. So why don't we start right there? Do you want to tell me a bit about the concept behind Fit20 and how you got involved? That would be great.
Sure. In terms of how I got involved, a good friend of mine in the Netherlands, who's a very successful entrepreneur, called me up in January 2016 and said, there's this amazing Dutch business that's sweeping across the Netherlands. It's gone into Belgium and they're poised for international expansion. We think, given your background, Niri, with franchising and your passion and knowledge for health and wellness, it would be an amazing business for you to get involved in the UK. And I said, oh, thank you, I'm complimented, because this individual had the fastest growing payroll bureau in the Netherlands for 6 straight years, and then he sold that to private equity. So very successful individual. And when somebody who's successful in business tells you to look at something, the least you can do is some due diligence to actually rule out why it's not a good opportunity. So I was intrigued and curious off the back of his credibility, first and foremost. And then we were on a Zoom call like this, and he showed me a picture of what looked like a gym, and I told him to get lost, because my perception of gym businesses is huge spaces, massive overheads related to that, and a revolving door of memberships where everybody signs up in January. You can't get a space in the car park, and then come February, you think, am I in the right place? Is this place shut? So whilst I was into my health and fitness, I didn't like that model. But he suggested I might want to go to the Netherlands and actually meet the team and experience the workout, and that's what I did. And when I met the team there with Walter Vendel and Bram Kroska, who are the 2 co-founders there, and I actually tried the workout, I thought, wow, this is amazing. This is something I would do myself. I was approaching my 50s, 50, and at the time I was doing what I would call high volume, high impact stuff, running, kickboxing, and picking up injuries every week. And I was spending as much time exercising, trying to be fit and healthy, as I was recuperating and repairing the damage I was regularly doing. And I found a way that I thought, actually, I can get the same benefit of doing this sort of exercise in a lot less time without the injuries and the impact. What's not to like? I'll certainly be a paying customer. And my wife, Catherine, said, you do realize that if we don't take the rights for this franchise, somebody else will take it in the UK, more than likely in the Southeast, and it'll take a while to move to Yorkshire, which is where I lived. So we thought, you know what, we like the product enough. We can see that there's a good business case here. And most importantly, we felt strongly that if we did take it on, it was something that would make a huge difference to a lot of people that were underserved. The sort of cash rich, time poor, 40 plus, successful type of person, but possibly the more successful they were becoming, the more the health conditions were building up as well. And we've got something that scientifically helps people to be stronger and more functional.
Right.
So that's how I got into Fit20.
Yeah.
In terms of how does Fit20 work, it is science-based first and foremost. In fact, Fit20 was part of the largest study ever in exercise science, lasting 6.5 years with 14,690 people. So that's a huge sample of data. Yeah. Typically, when you have exercise science studies, they're on 20, 30, 40, 50 people. They're usually an elite or specialist population. And they don't last very long because, you know, your semi-professional, professional footballers got to do the thing that they get paid for. So the data is very compelling, and it showed that whether you were aged in your 30s, 50s, or 70s, whether you were male or female, within 12 months, Fit20 will help you be 30 to 50% stronger. And then you can maintain that as you get older. And strength is a gateway into all the body systems to make you healthy, vibrant, and strong. So that's a little bit about the science behind it. And the way it works is you train by appointment. once a week with a trainer, dressed as you are, and you do a very super slow exercise using specialist equipment. And you train until you can't push the weight anymore. So if you imagine this is my chest press, you're pushing it out for 10 and back.
Yeah.
You have a sensor technology which shows you how slow or fast to go. So it's very precise. And you get to the point within 1.5 to 2 minutes where you're trying to push the weight, but you can't. And you reach this thing called momentary muscle failure. And that's the point at which your body has an adaptive response and you get stronger as a result of it over the coming days. And we find that if you leave the next training more than 7 days, you get weaker than you were a week ago. Whereas if you train within that 5 to 7 or 8 day window, you've got the rest, the recovery, the rebuild, and the strengthening. So you can incrementally just get stronger as you go. And that's how it works.
So as a customer, okay, so as a customer, it's Fit 20 and you say 20 minutes per week. So that's, I mean, so that seems unbelievable, right? And that's probably your biggest problem is trying to get people to understand how is that possible. And then when you throw in the fact that no, you don't need to go and change and all of this because presumably you're not going to sweat a lot because it's not, you know, it's not a hit, it's not high intensity training and all of that. And that, how do you get that across? Because that's the bit which I guess if I was looking to invest in a business, that would be my big question. Is it all sounds great and the science could prove it absolutely, and I could go and try it out and it could absolutely work for me, but how do I attract customers on the basis of that message? Because that seems difficult. It shouldn't, but it seems difficult because it seems unbelievable in a way. Do you know what I mean? It's so yeah. What kind of things, what tactics do you need to use?
Yeah. So if I could say a couple of things about that, it's a great question. It's one that comes up a lot. So
Yeah.
well spotted. In terms of our training, it is a form of high intensity training, but you're right, it's not high intensity interval training where you're throwing yourself around and sweating.
Yeah.
Because you do the exercise really slowly in a custom cooled room, you don't need the body to cool you down where you're sweating. So yes, it's super convenient from that point of view, and people are concerned about how they look in gym gear because they've not been active for a long time, etc. It removes all of those obstacles to being more active in a space like ours. And the trick with the way we, I guess, persuade you as to the effectiveness and efficacy and viability and credibility of our training method is not to explain it. The trick is to get you into the studio and experience it. Because once you do the workout, that's it. That's the end of it. You just get it and you're like, okay, this is incredible. I had no idea that it could be so effective and intense, but I get it now. You know, this is the equivalent. We had one chap who turned up and he said, for me to get this effect, I'd have to do 100 press-ups with his feet elevated and going down, which is a harder way to do a press-up rather than having your feet on the ground. It's hard to do a press-up for a lot of people anyway. And we produce the same effect in about 80 to 90 seconds because there's no momentum. So there's a lot of explanation and intellectually you'll get it. But of course, you know, if you're, Doug, I don't know how old you are, but let's say you're 35, okay? You know, for the best part of those 30 or so years, you've got a concept of what it takes to be healthy and fit and what is a good form of exercise.
Yeah.
And the longer somebody's been on this planet of ours, the more preconceptions and notions they have as to what that entails. So what we do is we try not to actually fight or resist that. We just get them into the studio with a free introductory session, and they do 3 of the 5 or 6 exercises. And by the end of it, they'll say, yeah, this is great. I'd like to give it a go. And around 80% of people typically will sign up for a membership after that free introductory session.
So that's the trick, basically. You're marketing to get people in for that free session because you know from there the conversion rates can be very high because you've effectively proven it for free. at no
Exactly.
cost,
Yes.
and they've
And in the
experienced.
UK, yeah, absolutely. And in the UK, that is the best strategy that we know of right now because the concept recognition is low. In the Netherlands, where there are over 120 studios, you could drive 20 minutes from wherever you live or 30 minutes wherever you live in the Netherlands slowly and probably be in the zone or radius of a Fit 20 studio. So the concept recognition is much higher. And obviously, once in an area somebody's tried it, they're going to tell their family and their friends about it. And again, we ask them that if they do want to share the benefits, because it's been life-changing for them, not to get caught up in an explanation. Just invite them along for a free trial session.
Yeah. Okay. All
That
right.
works really well.
No, that sounds good. I'm based in North Norfolk, Niri, and I was having a look. Where's my closest? And I think it's in Norwich or Helsden Way in Norwich. So I'm planning. I will plan to go and have a free session at some point and test it for myself because I'm really intrigued. I'm very open-minded. So I play devil's advocate a lot, but I'm actually myself very open-minded. So I've no problem buying into these things. One thing I would say is I know you didn't choose the name, right? Fit 20, and it's based on 20 minutes a week. I might have called it Fit 60 minutes a week. It just sounds a bit more believable. And 3 sessions a week of 20 minutes. What does a typical customer does a typical customer only go for one session of 20 minutes a week, or is it better to go for 2 sessions of 20 minutes a week or three? What's the, what would you say to that?
Yeah, so, logically it's plausible that more is better, right? But there's a lot of science now that the technology exists to actually measure the stress response in the body from an exercise effect, that there is a lot of evidence that says that there is a cutoff point beyond which doing more is actually stressing the body and harming it and actually counterproductive. And there are lots of more educated people who can talk about that at length. But generally, you find that the fatigue becomes cumulative if you train more than once a week, especially if you do a true high intensity Fit 20 training. It's a tough training obviously we don't throw you in at the deep end when you start because it depends what you have and haven't done. You've got to be safe and inroad the customer gradually. But as you do that, we do often get people saying, hey, this is really good. I feel like I want to do more. And there's one chap who actually, when we'd first started, called Tony, great guy, very supportive, came along. And it's the first time I actually saw Tony wear a suit because he'd seen our marketing material and seen people dressed in business clothes from Holland. So I said, Tony, what are you doing? You're going to court afterwards or something? And he said, no, I just wanted to prove that this would or wouldn't work in a suit. Anyway, he didn't tear his suit because it was a really tight fit suit. And that was one of his questions. I've done a lot of gym stuff, normally 3 or 4 times a week, split routines and all that sort of thing. And I got into the science and 5 or 10 minutes of toing and froing with him. And then, I said, Tony, look, here are the keys to the studio. At the end of the session, if you want to come back in 2 or 3 days' time and do another session, you can have the keys, knock yourself out. Of course, at the end of the session, he said, no, you can keep your keys, mate. Because he realized that the recovery and the repair is an inherent part of the protocol. And that's when the magic actually happens.
Right. Okay. So that's all very, very, very persuasive. So before we move on, Neri, where can people who either want to maybe become a customer and have a free session, where can they go? And where can people that are maybe interested in the franchise, in actually owning this type of business in their area, where do each of those kind of people, where's the best starting point for them?
So your question, thank you for that. If somebody's interested in learning more about Fit 20 and wants to try it for free at a local studio, then fit20.co.uk. If you Google that and just click on where it says studios, it'll bring up a map and you just go through, book in for a free session. All our franchisees are very, what I would call softly. It's literally a case of what brought you to this studio? What have you tried? What about this intrigued you? What hasn't worked, etc. Well, here's a bit about Fit 20. Here's how we think we can help you achieve what you want, or if we can't. And they're very thorough with the health information as well to make sure that we're not doing anything to make you worse, which is important. And then you just try the introductory session, and at the end of it, you'll know whether it's right for you or not. They'll run you through the memberships and all that sort of stuff. So that's if you want to be a customer. And I'll be happy, by the way, to introduce you to Dan Kelly and his team there at Fit 20 Norwich. They're fantastic. You'll enjoy meeting them as an individual business owner, if nothing else as well. If you're interested in learning more about the franchise opportunity, then fit20franchise.co.uk would be your best starting point. And it'll give you some initial information, and then you go from there. If it doesn't put you off, then you can obviously speak to somebody in more detail. Otherwise, find something else that's right for you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Niri, for that. Just go back to where you got involved, and you became the master franchisee for the UK, and own the rights for the whole of the UK and growing the brand in the UK. Have you ever had a master license before? Have you ever been a master licensee of a brand before?
Yeah, I was the master for BNI in India from 2004, 2003 that we signed the option, through to December 2015.
Right. Okay. So you had experience in that. And with BNI, to go back to that, how did you get involved with BNI? So if we just take it back before your Fit 20, time, BNI, which I know very, very well as a brand, Business Networking Institute. And how did you get involved in that? And I guess maybe even before that, when did franchising as a concept, as we all know it, anyone involved in franchising at this kind of a level, business format franchising, how long had you been aware of that as a concept?
I first I'd heard of franchising as a kid, but I didn't know what the heck it was, but probably started to get my head around it in the late 80s, mid to late 80s.
Yeah.
And I actually went to work in the city as a trainee consulting actuary for a global consulting firm in the area of employee benefits. So we were doing pension valuations and things like that. And it was at that time that I thought, you know what, this is really well paid. Everyone thinks I'm really cool, but I hate my working life. I absolutely loathe it. And I was looking to get out of it. And I thought, well, everything I hate about my work situation is that I'm told when I have to go in, I'm told when I can go out, and I'm supposed to work 35, 40 hours a week, but I actually work 50 or 60 hours a week. What would be great is if I had my own business, because then I could decide when I worked and where I worked and what it was doing, etc. So that was the beginnings of my sort of entrepreneurial itch that I wanted to scratch. And it was at this time, the challenge was that I had no clue what I would do. Especially when you've not done anything, you're scared of making your first foray into self-employment and entrepreneurship. You're scared of failing. So you want to pick what's going to be like the dream ticket. And of course, the reality is that the majority of people that get into business, the first thing you do, you're going to fail, and probably miserably. And you've got to be prepared to get back on the saddle and have another go. So it was at this time that I thought, do you know what? If I look at all the businesses that seem to be growing that are new, because I had this other thing that I didn't want to get into something that was long established. Because whilst it's secure and predictable, somebody else has made all the money. Jimmy Goldsmith said, if you spot the bandwagon, well, you've missed it. And that always stuck in my head. I guess that's an 80s or 90s reference. So I looked across the Atlantic to the USA and thought, what are the things that they do that come here? And I'd noticed McDonald's and KFC as brands had come over in the 70s and 80s, and grew really fast. And those people who got involved in the early stages of that had a relatively wild and free ride. So I was looking for the next big thing from the States, and I saw franchising as one big sector, regardless of the industry within that, to get involved in. So that's when I first became aware of franchising.
Okay, and then BNI. How did that develop? How did you end up doing that?
So the podcast is about an hour or so, I'm guessing. I'll give you the short version. There's a big story behind everybody, obviously.
Oh yeah.
So while I was working in the city, I tried a number of things, but I was particularly stressed and burnt out. And I read a book called Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. And it was all about NLP and success and communication and strategies and things like that, which is where I was focused at the time. But in there, I think it's the 7th chapter. It was called Physiology, the Avenue of Excellence. And he made an argument that you could have all these lofty goals and motivation and dreams and desires. But if in the morning your alarm clock went off and you struggled to roll out of bed and you just wanted to hit snooze, then you needed to look at your lifestyle, diet, etc. And at the time, I was experiencing some health challenges. And I thought, you know what, this makes absolute sense. I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to try this for 3 or 4 weeks, like he's challenging me to in the book here. And I felt he was speaking to me in this book, having tried all sorts of other things. And within a month, a lot of my symptoms disappeared, my allergies, my energy improved, etc. And I just became an evangelist about what was essentially a vegan type lifestyle to clean and get moderate amounts of exercise daily. And people noticed that in me as well. And I thought, you know what, this could be something that I certainly want to learn more about. So I actually spent time traveling to the States for courses to learn from people, because in the UK, people hardly knew what a vegetarian was, let alone a vegan.
Yeah.
And people started asking me for help. And it became very, very fulfilling and gratifying to be able to share what I knew to help them. And they got amazing results. And I ended up by default leaving the city and starting up a consulting business in wellness.
Right.
And it was at that time that a gentleman called James Sanderson, who was a franchisee with BNI, invited me along to a BNI meeting. I went along. He'd invited me to a meeting at 7 o'clock. I said, yeah, sure, James, maybe we could get for dinner afterwards. And there was a long pause on the phone. He said, you think this is in the evening, don't you? I said, oh, you're telling me it's in the morning. I didn't know there were 2 7 o'clocks in the day, back then. Anyway, I went along, and halfway through the meeting, I actually got up and made my way towards the exit, not because I didn't like it, but because I thought, do you know what? This is fantastic. There are a group of people here who are all going to look out for business opportunities on my behalf. And all I have to do is, if I meet someone or know someone who could use their products or services, I put in a good word of recommendation for them to talk to you about it. And I thought, this is fantastic as a startup. I'm in. So I went to the back, didn't know how much it cost. And I put it on an American Express card, which he refused because they didn't take American Express. So I did a little balance transfery thing, and we were off to the races, and I got involved in BNI that way. And about 3 months later, at another Tony Robbins event at the front row at the Queen Elizabeth Conference Centre in London, there's an event called Wealth Mastery. There was somebody probably about 10 meters in the front row, and we locked eyes, and you were supposed to go up to a stranger and pledge allegiance to, not allegiance, but pledge to play full out in this event and leave your preconceptions and prejudices outside the door. And that lady was Catherine. She invited me up for a birthday in July of 1999. So I drove up to Yorkshire. I'd never been that far north in my life before. And I didn't go back. I stayed.
Right.
Within 3 weeks, we knew we were going to build a future together. And we talked about building life together. And it was at that stage that I thought, hey, the people who started BNI in the UK, Martin and Gilly Lawson, have been after me to get involved as a franchisee. I'd always said no. I phoned them up on a Tuesday, and Catherine and I drove down to London on the Saturday and had a chat with Martin and Gilly. And we basically bought the franchise rights for West Yorkshire. and got
Wow.
started from there. I didn't know anybody except Catherine, who back then was a part owner in a contemporary art gallery and part-time primary school teacher. So no business contacts. And we lived in we still do live in a village called Holmfirth, which is better known for last of the summer wine. So it's not a hub of commercial, it certainly wasn't then, a hub of commercial activity that would suit a B&I group. The nearest place was Leeds. But
Right.
yeah, so that's how we got started. 2 or 3 years into it, I had the bright idea in the shower one day that, hey, you know what? This would work really, really well in India. So I approached the founder of BNI, Dr. Miser, and said to him, I'd be interested. And he said, well, I'd be interested if it's you. So we set about building a business there. And I built it being a permanent full-time resident in the UK with a business partner out there. And we built it into their best territory at the time. And also now, most of the best practice in the organization has its origins with stuff that started in or around BNI in India. So it's quite a proud achievement.
Brilliant. And so the developing India and growing India, how long, what kind of period of time were you involved with BNI?
For India?
Yeah, for India. Yeah. Yeah.
So November 2004, we started the first group at the Indian Merchants Chamber in South Mumbai. And then in December 2015, I was out of the business. So what's that, about 12 years?
Yeah. Right. And the Yorkshire side of the BNI business, what happened there?
Yeah, so that continued from, I think, April 2000. I launched the first group at the David Lloyd Club in North Leeds and built that up, acquired 3 more sub-franchise territories. So basically all of Yorkshire, a bit of Derbyshire, a bit of Lincolnshire, North and Northeast Lincolnshire. And in November 2022, I sold all my regions back to the master franchisor for the UK.
Okay. And
to focus full time on Fit 20.
Exactly. I was going to say, so this is where Fit 20 comes in. So you'd obviously, you were trading one for another in a way, and moving along. Just talking about BNI, because I know the power of BNI and networking in that way, and the kind of referral business you can get from that. I just want you to talk generally about referral business and networking in the way that BNI was set up, what you learned from that, how you will probably always still apply so many of those principles that you learned working with BNI, because I just think it's an incredibly valuable part for any business owner to think about how to create more referral clients or customers, and some of your tips as to how to go about that. Because I think a lot of business owners I speak to, and franchisors as well, and franchisees, they really struggle with that. They really struggle knowing what to do. And yes, you can say join your local BNI, network. That's a good start, I'm sure. But beyond that, what else can people be doing? What would you say about referral marketing?
Yeah, so referrals are hands down, for the amount of time and money you spend, the one of, if not the best return on investment of your time and money. And there's also a lot of data that backs up the fact that a referral customer is easier to convert, lasts longer, and more likely to refer on people to you. So you'd be nuts not to have it as a part of your marketing mix, for sure. It's not the only way, but it's certainly one of the best ways. And I have personal first-hand experience of having literally tens of thousands of business owners or senior decision makers experiencing those sorts of results. And something like a BNI group in your area is fantastic. It's always the case that, BNI follows the same system wherever you are in the world or the country. But each group has its own unique mix of people. So get along there and see the people and get a feel that there's a good chemistry or potential for good chemistry with you, because it's relationship marketing. And in terms of referrals, the best way to get referrals is to ask for them. Walter Vendel, the founder of Fit20, says, you have to be willing to be humble and put yourself out there and say, Doug, would you be willing to help me? I need help. Would you be willing to help me? How? Well, the results you've been getting with Fit20. Can you think of one or two other people who you think would benefit and appreciate the same thing? And of course, it's a very soft, no pressure type of request. The trick with all of this is to build the relationship first and build what I think Stephen Covey, the late great author, used to say. You need to deposit in the emotional bank account first before you can withdraw from it. So, you and I build a relationship up. I hopefully add value in some way and continue to do that. And it's only when we've got that and it feels natural and effortless to do so that that's the best time to ask. You can do things to accelerate that process. But I guess that's possibly a discussion for another day.
No, that's great, Niri, and I think it's something that every business should be considering as part of their marketing strategy, is how to go about creating more referral inquiries or leads, and then, because from there good things happen. We know that personally from our side of things. We put quite a lot of focus on that for sure, and I did want to ask, with Fit20, just to dig a little bit deeper into how you encourage franchisees or help franchisees to do that. Yes, that's a really simple one that you've just, a simple example you've just given, whereby you ask your existing customers who are happy with the results and the relationship, if you like, to spread the word a bit. But what else are you doing beyond that? What can be done? What can be done centrally, maybe from a franchisor perspective, to help franchisees with referral marketing?
So we run a lot of training, particularly with my own background, and we recommend to every franchisee that they engage with a local BNI group or something similar. If it's not BNI, there are others. I think BNI is probably the best one that I'm aware of in most of the UK. But there are also more casual networking groups you can go to. They meet maybe once a month or in an evening. Find what's right for you. It's about, with a Fit20 context, it's about you as the business owner, the franchise owner, being the face of Fit20 in your local community. And it's about getting out there and getting to know people and be known. And if you can help others or collaborate with them, then to reach out and do that, have joint ventures or events. So Duncan Atwood, who runs our Exeter studio and soon to open one in Torquay as well, is in the final stages of negotiating lease there. When he first started with Fit20, it was not practical for him because he'd relocated from Birmingham well, he was actually living in Bude, so it was an 1.5 to 2 hour drive every day to go to Exeter for him from Bude because his wife was teaching there. It was not practical for him to start in a BNI group on a Wednesday morning at 7 o'clock. But a year into lockdown, he started doing a lot more networking. And from there, he's really got the bug and he's involved very actively, more widely, right across that area now with the local BNI director support team as well. So I guess what I'm saying is, you want to get out there and get known. And as you go, you learn. But at Fit20 ourselves, like I say, we teach people how to do that in a structured way. And we find that our most successful franchisees are the ones that embrace in some form of networking in their local community.
Great. And if I ask you about, because there's the physical kind of networking side where you're actually meeting people in the flesh, face to face, and all of that. But there's also the kind of the digital world as well, where you can reach people not in quite the same way, but you can still create some trust and credibility, which can lead to referrals. It's slightly different again, but what advice, or what do you do? What would you say is a good way to go about that? Because I think it's easy to it's easy for people to understand, okay, you've got to get up. If it's 7 in the morning, it's 7 in the morning, but you know, that's before the day starts. So that's actually a great time to go and do this. Doesn't impact on your working day effectively. And it's a massive benefit. But on a digital side, what can people be doing to take advantage of it?
Yeah, so if I go back to BNI, there are online meetings. The organization pivoted to fully online during the whole COVID thing, and some of those groups have remained. In fact, I know when I was the franchisee, we launched a number of groups from scratch that were purely online and were going to remain online. And as far as I'm aware, they're still doing well, and the members are, doing lots of referral business. So that's one avenue. But then there are lots of platforms like LinkedIn and other digital opportunities as well. And I think you have to decide whether you're going to be a sell type of person or a relate, collaborate type of person. If you're on LinkedIn, you're probably experiencing somebody who'll send you a connection request with a well thought out introductory message, and then automatically, because they've signed up for one of the premium LinkedIn memberships, you get a bunch of sales pitches, and for me, that's a turn off because I feel like I've been, prematurely solicited, really. I'm happy to connect with people and try and add value to them and vice versa. But if it's just a veiled pitch, I think people are doing themselves and their potential opportunities more harm. It's very short-sighted. We call that hunting rather than farming and collaborating.
Yeah.
So I think if you're respectful and mindful, because, at the end of that other side of the screen is another human being with similar aspirations, hopes, dreams, fears, etc. And I think if we connect at a human level, in person is the best because you get all the extra energy and non-verbal cues that you pick up. But I think the whole digital space is a good stepping stone and inroad into that.
Yeah, what you're saying, Niri, really is that every digital platform can be used in a different way, and you can sell, or as you say, you can do it in a different way, which is through collaboration and building a relationship and adding value to that person and giving them something that they appreciate first, and naturally then interest gets shown both ways, and that can lead to good things. So no, I totally get it. And I have to be honest, I'm sick of LinkedIn. I mean, I use LinkedIn a lot. I really value it, but I'm kind of sick of it from the perspective that, I mean, everyone's doing the same thing. They just sell, trying to be, trying to do it in a clever way, but it's all automated. It drives me mad. Trying to keep up with LinkedIn because I have a lot of connections. Because I'm a bit of a I easily accept a connection request, probably unwisely, but over the years I have, been quite easy target, really. And now my inbox is just an absolute nightmare. So I hear where you're coming from, and it's very, very rare that I get something that stops me and actually makes me want to go further. Every now and then, and that every now and then is really what you're talking about. It's yeah, they're not just selling me something.
Yeah, I guess if I could phrase it this way, you need to figure out whether you're going to be the kind of person who's going to promote or attract.
Yeah.
And I think when you work out which one you're going to be, attract rather than promote, everything you do is driven by that. It's like having your values set. They govern your decision making and thought process. And I guess it is part of that. It's about collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. And so back to Fit 20, and Niri, I wanted to understand where you are now as a business, like how many franchisees, how many locations, and what the vision is, what you're looking to achieve in the UK, if we're just talking about the UK.
So the lower end estimate for the UK is that the market will comfortably support 500 studios in the UK and Northern Ireland. We're currently on 9 locations, one of which is in Norwich, not too far from you.
Yep.
And we're due to open another one in Halifax, which is our 10th location. And then we've got a pipeline of inquiries serious inquiries. One actually, when this call finishes, a chap for Warrington and Salford. And we're also attracting, I think, a much better quality and caliber of candidate looking at our franchise as well. People who are interested in multiple units, professional, have the right sort of financial background and capability as well. And also understanding what the business is and what the potential is as well. I think the media is talking a lot more about health and strength in particular as an inroad to being healthier and fitter as you age.
Okay. And one thing that popped into my mind is USPs. You know, every business got to have a USP. What are yours? Because I can think, oh, I'll just do my press up slowly, really slowly, because you've just told me that's a good thing to do. And but there's more to it than that. Tell me a bit about your USPs and whether it's the science side, the machinery, the technology, what makes up the USP set.
Yeah, all of those things you talked about. So, you know, I think we're one of the few brands that does what it says in our payoff, which is fit in 20 minutes a week. That doesn't mean the rest of the time for 167 hours and 40 minutes, you sit on the couch and eat tortilla chips and watch TV all day and binge watch. It just means you have the capacity to be more recreationally active, so you don't have to do high intensity stuff or go for stupid runs because you feel you need to, not because you want to. So I think that's the most important thing. In terms of the training protocol, the reason we train slowly is because there's no momentum. So your muscles are working at a very deep level and you're recruiting all the major muscle fiber types, all 4 of them, to push that weight rather than the weight carrying itself through momentum. And there are lots of small adjustments and tweaks. You know, this whole concept of marginal gains, which was popularized by Team Sky Sports and the British Olympic cycling team.
Yeah.
Like that, there are lots of incremental gains to add to the intensity and effectiveness of the training method. In the way we train, we have sensor technology, etc. But also, we've worked with a number of franchise consultants historically, and you know, it's not that we were the only brand they worked with. They've worked with hundreds of other brands internationally. And they were really impressed with the level of attention and detail that we have in the business in terms of not just helping the members get really good, effective, safe training, but we take that level of attention to our franchisee support and onboarding as well. So we use an off-the-shelf software system, but we've bespoked it, and the level of investment that the international franchise holders or franchise givers in the Netherlands have put into that is, you know, impressive by a third party's account, and they get to look at an overview of what other people do. So, you know, there's lots of things like that. And I guess the challenge for me is that I'm so close to it, I take it a little bit for, well, that's how we do it. We were chatting before this call about, you know, some of the challenges in the franchising industry, and I'm involved in a couple of other Facebook groups and things like that. And you see people having challenges and you just think, oh, I thought you would just know that. But of course, I take for granted that I've been involved in the industry and the sector for 24, 25 years and so on and so forth. But yeah, we're what we would call a full formula or full service franchise. So any key aspect of the business is systemized, documented, protocoled, and we keep tweaking it and improving it.
Great. And I'd one last question, Niri, and then we'll call it we'll call time on it. I just wanted to get your advice. So this is really, I guess that maybe more high net worth investors who are listening, they either are already a multi-unit, multi-business owner. Maybe they're looking for the next the next cool thing to add to their portfolio, cool brand or business. At a master level, so country rights and developing a brand in a country. What tips would you give them to making sure they make better decisions as to the brand that they choose to invest in and then develop? Because I think over the years, there's way more failures, way more than successes at this kind of level of brands trying to find a master and master licensees choosing a brand. It's just such a high failure rate that any advice you can give, because you've been there and you've done it twice. What would you say to those high net worth investors?
I'd say a couple of things. Obviously, it's a big thing, and it depends on the individual, because whilst the one thing that might be common with those high net worth investors is their financial capacity and they've got a couple of brands, each of those are unique in their own way in terms of their skill sets, strengths, and capabilities that they bring to the table, and also their sector expertise. And I know that once you have the back office systems and processes set up for one brand, you can pretty much cookie cutter that across. And there are a lot of big brands, particularly in the US, that do that across food, hospitality, leisure, fitness, etc. And some in the UK as well. But a couple of things come to mind to answer your question a bit more directly. One is, just because somebody has the money, it doesn't mean that the brand owner should sell them the franchise. That's one of the big mistakes. I think their own due diligence needs to be on a par with their eagerness to expand internationally, because it's easy to sell it now, but then having a failure harms the brand and your reputation for future territories. So that's one side of it. So I think if I was rolling out the Fit 20 brand, and I'm pleased to say that they tend to do this, they're very careful who they allow into the inner circle, as it were, as well. As somebody who's a high net worth individual, these people are clearly, if they've got multiple brands, they've clearly got some track record and experience. One thing I know with Fit 20, the reason I got into it as a master is that it isn't just a fad that's going to be passing. In the few short years I've been involved in the fitness industry, I've seen brands come and go, and they've put in 7, 8-figure investments and disappeared off the face of the planet. And I'm talking about just the UK and Ireland, not Europe-wide or globally. So you've got to look at, does this thing have some longevity? And then look at, how does this align with what else we want to do? And I know one of the reasons is to look at diversification of your portfolio, but there is an alignment in terms of systems and processes. And it's not something I have a huge level of experience of, so I'm hesitant to give advice on something I'm not an expert on. But I have worked with Fit 20 as a master, and obviously with BNI as a franchisee and franchisor. And there are some common issues and challenges, and of course the territory you're involved in. That's a key thing to consider as well.
Great. No, that's helpful, Niri. I think you're absolutely right. I think the longevity is a key, making sure, and then like you did, you actually you came at it from being a customer or client first. That's actually what sold you. That's one of the reasons why you became a master franchisee in the first place. So if you can't get on board the product or the service or both, then you're not going to invest in it in the first place anyway. So you've got to throw yourself in as a customer or a client, and make sure that works for you, I think. So and those are I think really good tips as a starting point.
It's really important not to just be transactional. Certainly with Fit 20, I can't speak for other brands in the franchise space. I've got a couple of gentlemen who are here, like I said, for Warrington / Salford, and I think he's good to go. But one of the things we said is, even if you took all the money that was required to get involved in our franchise out of your back pocket and put it on the table, we'd say no, because the reason they're here is to experience the studio, and we want some sort of emotional connection, because we find that unless you have that, you're not going to fly, especially in the early stages where concept and brand recognition need to be developed in the market. You need that extra passion for the brand. Otherwise, people just see that it's just, pound signs that you're seeing, rather than a fair exchange of adding value as well. So yeah, I'm with you 100% on that, Doug.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, Neri, look, I'll let you introduce me to the Norwich guys, because I'm keen now to go and have my own session, because never done this before actually. So, and I do a lot of exercise and I enjoy it. And I'm not really into high intensity interval training that much. I do a lot of kind of zone 2 training and things like that, and for fitness. And so this I can see how this could really add into what I do. So I'm really interested. So, but for now, Neri, we'll leave it there. And thanks so much for giving your time, and hopefully we'll bump into you in the future.
Yeah, I look forward to it. And thank you for having me on this. And I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and wish you continued success.
Yeah, and to you. All right. Cheers, Neri. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.